Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with Micah Richards and me, Gary Lineker. There's no Alan Shearer with us on today's episode as we're recording this straight after the England-Serbia game. A win for England, of course. Alan was doing the co-commentary in Gelsenkirchen, so we'll hear about his time at the Veltins Arena and in the city on a later episode. It's a long train journey, so I think he's now on the train back, and I think he's whacked because I think he travelled through the night to Gelsenkirchen to get there. Yeah, he did. So by choice, I think he could have gone in the morning, but
yeah, he's a busy person.
I was out. We saw England get off to a winning start. Wasn't particularly inspiring, a little bit unconvincing, but you know, these. Let's talk about the broadcast side of things, just first of all, because perhaps people are interested in how it goes. We've got the studio, we've got the setup. There's a long build-up of an hour, of course, and I think overall, when you're doing an England game, you are separate. We're in our own little world. We're watching the game, obviously, on TV monitors like you are at home, big ones, and there's separate ones for analysis that we talk through during the game. But the one thing you try and get right is the tone. And when it's a performance like the one this evening, Micah, you wonder whether perhaps we got carried away with England's performance in the first half. I don't think we did. I think we were right. I think they played really well in the first half for now. And then you wonder whether you got the tone right at the end of the game because, you know, we were quite critical of a lot of facets of the England game, particularly, I think, the way they sat back in the second half. But they won. Yes. So you want to try and gauge the mood of the nation, and it's not always easy.
Yeah, but we've got to remember we're fans too, as well. We want England. We want England to win.
Yeah, and people sometimes say you shouldn't be biased on the BBC, but I've never bought that with sport. I don't get that thing. I think what you've got to do as presenters and as pundits, if it's your team, whether it's a club side or a national side, it's fine to cheer them on. It's
what
fine
if you're ambassador for one but you support the other? How does that work?
Just talk about England.
No, I do believe we got the tone right today. I think in terms of how England set up, I thought Gehi was outstanding, or Gehi, how I pronounce it. Gehi. Stones, I thought, was a leader at the back too.
The interesting thing is, and sorry to interrupt slightly, but all the concerns prior to this tournament were about the defence. All the worries were about the defence. But in the end, they actually defended really well.
They really did.
Against a very tough physical
The average side was 6'2", wasn't it? Yeah. And they were physical. They set up with Mitrovic and Vlahovic as well up top. And I was a little bit cautious because I've been doing my research on Y-Scout. It gives you all the clips of the best actions of players and with the players that they have, Milinkovic-Savic, who's at Lazio, he's now in Al Hilal in Qatar,
the Saudi League.
In the Saudi League. Mitrovic too as well. Vlahovic is a player I followed fondly because he was at Fiorentina.
And he went to Juve.
And he went to Juve, and he had a bad injury. He's not been at the same level. Tadic, who come onto the game, I thought he changed the game when he came on. And I was just nervous because you've been in tournament football. And the first game, you want to just get that over the line, don't you? And there's nerves going into it. And when we started so well...
You know, I've played in 4 tournaments, never won an opening game.
Have you really?
No. I'm just thinking now, 86 we lost to Portugal. 88 lost to Republic of Ireland. 90 was a draw with the Republic of Ireland, 1-1. 92 was a draw with Denmark, which was a goalless draw. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good knowledge there.
Well, I played in them.
Well, I mean, you don't remember everything, do you?
Not at my age, Micah.
No. I'm not suggesting anything, Gary.
I can remember things a long time ago. I can't remember what we spoke about 2 minutes ago.
But yeah, in terms of the game, really, I knew Serbia would be at it. They're very good at crosses. They're very physical, as I've mentioned as well. And it's how England was going to cope with that. You asked me about the centre-half, who were brilliant. I still think there's a bit of work to do left-hand side. I thought Trippier, defensively he's really good, but on the ball, offensively, we just lose.
He's better when he's on the right.
Yeah, we lose something going forward, and that's understandable. Of course it is. And
how close is Luke Shaw? Do you know? Have you got
the reports were saying he's going to be fit for the second
game. It's hard
game.
though. He's been out a long time and not played any games.
Exactly.
It's hard to have warm-up matches in a tournament.
Yes, that's exactly it. I thought Kyle Walker did well.
Yeah, he always does, doesn't he?
And, we didn't touch on him in the game when we was doing it for BBC. I thought Declan Rice played really well. And not outstanding like a Bellingham did, but he was just very measured in the way he performed. Just in front of the back four.
He very much was more disciplined because for the last few weeks of the season, he was kind of playing more as an 8, wasn't he?
For Arsenal,
back into that holding play. And he does it well. He protects that back four really well.
He does. But in terms of the whole game, it was disappointing because they started so well with Trent Alexander-Arnold in the midfield alongside Bellingham as well with Rice. It looked like they had all the combinations for the first 25, 30 minutes. We've cracked it. We were so hyper. We thought, can they continue it? And then in the end, it sort of just...
Well, it didn't peter out in the second half. It petered out the last 10, 15 minutes of the first half. Why do you think that was? Do you think that was Dragan Stojkovic, is the Serbian coach?
Who you played with?
Who I played with way back when. Who was always smart. And I don't know whether he made a change at that point or he just did it. But they were certainly a different side. And in the second half.
Yeah, well, they brought off Kostic, who was the wing back for Juventus. He got injured just before half time, and then they sort of just went for it.
Yeah,
I mean,
because the first half an hour they just basically sat really deep.
I think they was just sort of figuring out the game, how England would play it, but as a whole, we're really happy. Obviously, England get the points, but it's just the performance was underwhelming for the talent that we have. And I said that on BBC as well. Philip effing Foden. Yeah. I'm not going to swear because I feel like he doesn't deserve the effing. Go on, you going to do it?
No, I think it was more like, come on, Philip fucking Foden.
Yeah, but what can he do? What can he do?
You've been saying week in, week out, he's going to play on the left. And he's
it
doesn't work for him. It
doesn't work. It works if he plays Man City on the right or the left or number 10 because of the rotation. Yeah. You know how Pep sets up his sides. There's going to be movement, rotation, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, whoever it may be, Grealish, Doku, whatever it may be, alongside Haaland up front. And I just think with England, there's not enough of that, which he's left at times isolated. And me and Cesc had a really good debate afterwards, and he said I was protecting. I wasn't actually protecting Foden. It's just, it's frustrating. I did feel for him. It's almost like I felt for Trippier playing left back. He does a job, but that's not his role. It's not his game. So his game is isolated tonight. And I just thought, with Foden, it's so disheartening to see a player of that quality being played out of position. And Cesc was right. On the ball, he was moving into the number 10 role, but he still had to press on the left. And when he got the ball, it's almost like he was a little bit lethargic. He didn't have the 1-2. We talk about a player, Phil Foden's ability. He's the best at receiving the ball on the half turn. Yeah. So he has to play number 10. Put Bellingham further back alongside Rice and play Phil Foden in the 10. And I said against Iceland, he didn't have the best of games in that number 10. But other players have had other chances to play in their favoured positions. And if we persist with it, he can have an impact with this squad. Yeah.
You can't. I sympathise with you in some ways, and I don't think, certainly with English players, perhaps not. You see it differently elsewhere, that square pegs and round holes and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it suits him on the left.
It doesn't.
It doesn't seem to. I mean, he's better on the right, but Saka plays on the right. And Saka's great. Saka, I mean, he's consistent. He stays in that position. He likes that position. Phil Foden, I think, was caught between a rock and a hard place in the sense that he starts in that position, but he's been told that he can come inside. But coming inside from a wide position is different to starting in the centre and being able to go either way.
Correct.
But I'll take you back to Sven-Goran Eriksen's team. When we had everyone going, how do you fit in Lampard, Gerrard and Scholes? Well, you work out a way and a system that makes them all comfortable, which you could have done if you changed the system. Now, Sven, he was very much a strict kind of 4-4-2 man.
Correct.
So he had 3 midfield players playing in a straight line that they were all central midfield players. In the modern game, with those 3 players, you could have gone, Scholes at the back, Gerrard and Lampard either side, or vice versa.
Yes, correct.
And played a wide player and a wide player, because they had so many good players in those days. But because he was so kind of determined to play 4-4-2, that he wanted the players to fit into the system rather than get a system that suits the players that you've got. So I understand why he plays him on the left, because of the players he's got. But I think if he looks at it, maybe to try him in a game and, give him another chance, but as a 10, because Bellingham could do everything. Even though he gets a free role and that's worked really well for Real Madrid, because he goes where he wants. But he can sort of do that anyway, because he's really good defensively and he's so intelligent, and he just bosses things. So
it was great again, wasn't he?
He was. It'd be interesting to see how Gareth manages that situation on the left hand side, because you've got an obvious player that can play on the left hand side, haven't you? With Gordon,
Eze can play that.
Eze as well. There's so much talent in that team that it's kind of a little bit exasperating when they suddenly get 1-0 in front, and it's a criticism levelled at Gareth a lot, isn't it? About the fact that he gets ahead and then the team, whether it's via instructions or whatever, for some reason we do tend to sit back, and then it's almost. There's almost like side of a human condition, isn't there? They go, you want to defend something when you've got it. But when your strength is keeping the ball and going forward and being calm, then suddenly sitting back when you can't get out.
Yeah,
it was a strange game.
It was a strange old game. And you look at the substitutions. He brought on Gallagher, didn't he? He brought on.
The one thing they weren't doing was keeping the ball. And suddenly you brought on a player that is probably less likely to keep the ball, which was odd. But he said in his interview after the game, I needed protection. I needed the legs.
But
I disagree with him.
I disagreed with him.
I think we needed someone actually calm down.
Palmer. We needed Palmer.
Yeah.
It was a game for Palmer to get on the ball. Gallagher did all right when he comes in.
Yeah, he did
fine. But Bowen did all right.
I thought Bowen did well. But Bowen is a kind of obvious change for Saka. There's no real change there. Saka's obviously a better overall player. And I thought Saka played really well.
He played really well. Mainu came on as well. But yeah, it was just uninspiring, underwhelming, disappointing.
But it's not how you start a tournament.
But it's not.
It's how you finish.
But you did a really good line on Harry Kane at halftime as well about his positioning, and he has to trust his midfielders.
Question, didn't you?
Well, it was nice, because we've got a midfielder on a panel in Cesc, and me and Rio as a defender.
Well, normally Alan's there. So he would have said exactly the same thing.
But can you explain what you meant by that in terms of his positioning?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said to me would Harry Kane be really worried? Would he be frustrated about the fact that he's hardly took the ball? He had one flick on header and one pass in the first half, 2 touches. And the second touch was a flick off a couple of his hairs on his head. And you were saying, would he be frustrated with that? I said, he'll be frustrated he hasn't scored, but he won't be bothered in the slightest amount the amount of touches there, because that is the life of a centre forward. And the important thing for Harry was that he stayed high, because we talked about the amount of ability in the midfield. You don't want him going deep and then cluttering it up so there's less space for your own players. So my point really was that all Harry will be frustrated about is that he hasn't had a chance to score.
He had that one header.
But no, in the first half.
Oh, in the first half.
But in the second half, he would just be equally as patient, but he'll keep kind of get in the box, and that's my glass of red wine. I nearly spilled it.
Cheers.
There. So that's what happened. Cheers, Micah. Cheers. A really important part of the post-match experience is a nice
marvellous
glass of red while you're doing a podcast.
If any wine companies want to sponsor us, the rest is football, open to offers.
Well done, Mike. You're learning very fast about this podcast game. But ultimately, Harry will not be happy tonight. He said he was happy after the game. He's happy with the result and stuff like that. But believe you me, he will not be happy. He'll be absolutely gutted that the keeper made that world-class save from his header. But in terms of his overall performance, he'd have been waiting for that opportunity. And he's normally deadly. And to be honest, it was a tough header. He got above and it was a really good header. And it was a brilliant save. Harry's game is not running behind people. I'd like to see a bit more of that. I mean, I know he's not that quick, but you can still do those kind of things. And he has a tendency to want to come deep, and he did it a little bit more in the second half. You could see, but that was because England were playing deeper, so he felt he needed to try and help. So that's life as a centre forward. Sometimes you're hardly involved in the game, and when people say, "Well, he did nothing all game," but then you're not one in, because that is the value of Harry Kane, and he'll do that. You could look at Harry Kane's overall record and say, is he? Does he do it in the massive games against the big teams? His record's
better than yours.
But his record is fantastic. Exactly. But steady on.
Go on, mention World Cups. Go on.
No,
not more World Cup goals.
I don't need to. You've just done it. I love Harry Kane. He's a fantastic finisher, and he's a brilliant finisher. If he gets chances, by and large, he'll put them away, or he'll, I mean, that was a brilliant save from the goalkeeper. But that's life as a centre forward. Some days you don't get a sniff. You don't get a sniff, and people say, "Well, I did nothing," but it's not your fault. It's not necessarily your fault. So that's how it is. And then another day, he might have a game where he misses 3 and he scores 3. That's how it is. But he scores a lot of goals, and he will score a lot of goals, and he'll continue to score goals. And it's great that England have got that. People will suddenly go, "Oh, he was quiet. Why don't they give Ollie Watkins a go?" And I understand that. And Ollie Watkins is actually a good alternative, in the sense that he is a player that will look to get behind. So if you're in a situation, a game, and would Gareth Southgate be brave enough to make that kind of change if it's not working like it wasn't in the second half? Well, what about if you get Ollie Watkins on and then he spins behind and you knock a few balls into his path and he goes in, and even if he doesn't get them, it stretches their team. They get back, and all of a sudden you can get yourself up the pitch. I think I'm not saying Harry Kane should be dropped for Ollie Watkins, but it's good to have that alternative if you need it.
I talked a little bit about on BBC as well about him being bold, sort of leaving out Grealish and Rashford. But I did think in the game, last 15 minutes, it would have been nice to see Watkins in the game. You got Tony who can hold up the ball, Watkins who can stretch it as well.
It's hard to bring, someone like Harry Kane. I mean, it's hard to take him.
Of course, it is.
I understand why, because let's put it this way: if Serbia had scored, who would be the most likely person to score a winner in the last 10 minutes?
Harry Kane.
There you go. So that's, the manager's got to think like that,
But you've got to utilise your squad, haven't you? I mean,
yeah, and he may well do. And, if England beat Denmark on Thursday, live on the BBC, by the way.
What time is that? Is it?
We're on air at 4. I think kickoff is 5. So make sure you're there at 4, everybody. And, if England win that game, they'll be through. And then players will get a chance in the third game. He'll give them all a game, won't he?
How many watched on the BBC? Do you know? Have you got the figures through? Because what is this rivalry between ITV and BBC when they post the figures and all that sort of thing?
Well, for me, I got over that a long time ago. I don't really care, because it's ultimately, we alternate games in this, between us, and obviously there's a bit of rivalry. You want to, because we're competitive people. So, but how do you judge that? Do you judge it by the amount of people that watch a game? Because we know that if England are playing, you get more viewers, and they're not, it's only on one channel, and everyone will watch it regardless of whether it's on the BBC or ITV. I got over that a long time ago. But there is one thing.
One thing, go on.
The one
Spill
thing.
the beans.
One thing is the finals. BBC and ITV both show the final. So naturally, we are sporting people. We are competitive. So that is a little competition that it's not important, but it is to anyone else but us. And
we do like ITV though, don't we?
No, they do. They're really good.
Yeah, we don't need to have that rivalry. It's
English television does football very well. ITV do it brilliantly. We do it slightly better. It's a It's 3 points, and we've got to remember that. And I don't think there's any reason really to be depressed. I've played in so many tournaments where we've eventually performed brilliantly, even though it might not have worked for us. I can think of 90 semi-final where we lost on penalties, where we started the tournament awfully and found our feet. You do find your feet in a tournament. The first game is always difficult. Everyone's slightly edgy. You don't want to lose. So, I don't think it really makes that much difference on the overall where England will finish.
No.
There are a few things to be, I think, positive about, and a few things to be negative about. But every game's different. And then suddenly you find a little spark. And the world's a better place.
Let's hope so. The next game is Denmark on Thursday. I think I mentioned Guehi, Bellingham, Kyle Walker. I thought was really good. Saka was good as well. So positive to take from it. I think we need to be a bit more upbeat, and we just hold them to a high regard, don't we?
We do. But the perfect example of something that we can talk upbeat about is Jude Bellingham, man. I mean, it's crikey.
Wow. It's not normal what he's doing, is it?
No.
Let's be honest, it's not.
And every other team in the world will be envious about the fact that we've got him. And what an asset! I mean, he's got everything.
He's got everything. How can he have everything at 20 years of age?
It's staggering.
Win La Liga, you win the Champions League, you're starring in the Euros at 20. Maturity of him in his interviews as well. He's just. I just hope he can stay level-headed,
grounded.
And I think he will.
Do you think there's a danger?
I don't.
Because he's incredibly confident.
You know why I don't think there's a danger?
Yeah.
Is because he's at Real Madrid.
Do you know why I don't think there's a danger? Because he's absolutely driven.
He's driven,
and he understands he's great, but he wants it, and he wants greatness. And the great players drive themselves and motivate themselves.
If you look at that Real Madrid team that is in as well, I know we're diverting a little bit, but
we're allowed to. It's a podcast.
Vinicius is going to be around for a long time. Endrick, Rodrigo, Bellingham, Camavinga, Tchouaméni,
Mbappe,
Sir Kylian Mbappe.
Sir Kylian.
I just call him Sir Kylian. He's that good.
I don't think they knight people.
Well, I'll knight him.
They give them something honour.
Is
kind
it
of Legion?
Something I can't remember. And I just think because he's playing with great players as well, and he always wants to push himself, I think he's just going to be. He could be England's greatest ever player. Imagine that. It could be. How ridiculous does that sound?
Well, it is ridiculous because he's 20.
Yeah.
But it was mad, wasn't it? You remember when he was 15, 16 or something, when he left Birmingham and they retired the shirt and everyone was going, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Doesn't look so ridiculous now. I mean, he's got a lot of career left and things can happen and stuff, but he's the sort of person that...
What advice would you give to him? You're an older pro. You've been there, you've done it.
Yeah.
Not just... I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but from the football career to then the broadcasting career, you've managed to stay relevant all the way through. What sort of advice would you give to someone like a Jude Bellingham coming through, and how do you stay hungry? How do you stay humble? And how do you stay driven?
I've got the answer to that. Just do exactly what you're doing, Jude.
Keep doing it.
He's got it. He doesn't need any advice from me. It's already there. It's already there. He's unbelievably professional. His work rate's fantastic. His commitment is incredible. His talent is off the chart. He doesn't need any advice from me. He's got it, and he knows it. I have no fears that he'll lose his way. No fears at all. I think he's confident. It's not an arrogance. It's a confidence. But he's also humble, and the way he speaks and carries himself. He needs no advice. Just keep doing what you're doing. That would be my only advice.
Brilliant.
Keep on the straight and narrow. Keep doing what he will. He will. And he is the player that could be the difference. Finally, for England. It might not be this tournament, but this team's still young. There's so much talent. It might be in 2 years' time. It might be in 4 years' time. It might be in 6 years' time. Or it might be 2 or 3 of the following. We talked to Cesc, didn't we, about the success of the Spanish team. And they were where England are. He says they were where England are now. The difference between just being really good players and winners is winning.
But he said that the difference is, he said that England have it, the young players, but it's just them that mentality and believe in it. That's what they need to have now.
Yeah. They need the belief of Jude Bellingham, but it's hard to put that into people. I think as a nation, even though we always talk about we big up our chances and stuff like that, but ultimately we big up our chances, but we also knock ourselves,
of course,
because of our recent history, and we need to get over that and have that winning mentality that someone like Real Madrid has had, or the Spanish team had, the great Spanish team, or the great Brazilian team has had. You've got to have the talent to do that. The talent is there. It's the belief side.
The belief
that makes the difference, I think. But it's Denmark next.
Denmark next.
What a moment I thought when Christian Eriksen scored. We were in the studio, weren't we? 3 years ago, obviously, not 4, because of COVID, which was the most extraordinarily difficult and strange broadcast because we weren't in the ground. We didn't know what was going on.
We was at Salford Quays, wasn't we?
We were at Salford Quays.
BBC.
And Cesc was with us as well,
yeah,
wasn't he?
Me, you, Cesc, and I think it was Alex Scott.
Yeah, she was actually as a pundit then. Correct. And when he collapsed on the pitch, and I mean, we all thought he'd gone for a while, didn't we?
How do you deal with that? Because that was my first tournament.
I know.
And, I'm a confident lad. Yeah. I have banter. I love the game. But there was no planning for that moment. Well, I didn't know how to... Of course, you've got to show compassion. Yeah. But we thought, well,
there's only so much you can say as well. What
do you say?
No, it tested all of us. I mean, I've been through a few things because I was obviously doing much of the day, the night of the helicopter crash with the Leicester team, but you had a chance to prepare stuff, and it's a highlights package. I was doing much of the day when Fabrice Mwamba collapsed on the pitch, when we all thought he was gone. But again, there was time to get things together. But this was a live broadcast, and there's only so much you can say. We were distant. We weren't in the ground, so you couldn't describe what was going on. You couldn't see anything. Obviously, there were pictures of the incident. There was a bit of criticism around the fact that the cameras stayed on them too long. As a broadcaster, you don't know that they're going to do that, but at the same time,
why is that? Is that because it's on world feed?
It's on world feed. It's not controlled. The images that you get are not controlled by the BBC. It was like tonight's match, in a totally different thing. But tonight's match, there were times that the match director missed action and cut up the wrong shots and stuff, and it's slightly frustrating. But it wasn't our own. You're just given what every host nation country gets to be match director, and also there are match directors from other places, so you don't know what you're going to get. It's not within your own control. So it was a very difficult and unusual circumstance. But it was difficult. And in the end, we had to come off air. If you remember rightly, we came off air because you couldn't keep talking about a situation without any pictures or anything else and not knowing what's going on. And then we came off once they suspended the game. But that's all part of the broadcasting business. But it's something that when you say, how do you deal with that? You just sometimes you're busking it.
Experience.
You're just busking it, and because it's not something that we're there to talk about football. Yeah, that's what we do. But that was different, wasn't it?
It was different, but it was a great moment for it to score.
But then he comes on, and he scores the first goal for Denmark.
It was a brilliant moment.
Next European Championship.
It's just
amazing.
It's incredible. It's a great story. Yeah, I think it's one of the stories of the competition so far. I think in terms of the whole competition, it's been brilliant because there's been a lot of goals. But that moment stands out for me more than any.
And if Kasper Schmeichel, I interviewed him for the Rest is Football a few weeks ago, and it's still there on our feed. Look it up, and he talks beautifully about that whole thing and how he was close, and it was amazing, incredible. It's such a great stuff, such a happy ending.
Happy
and
ending.
Then he goes and then he scores another goal.
Happy ending.
There's
How about a few of those?
too much information. Before we finish, Michael, one little quite extraordinary news story. Erik Ten Hag, who's been talking on Dutch television. Obviously, he was asked about the Manchester United situation, the fact that he's staying. I'll read you the quotes. Manchester United have told me that they spoke with Thomas Tuchel. Yes. They said they eventually came to the conclusion that they already have the best manager. Manchester United flew to me in Ibiza to tell me that I was going to stay. So they disturbed my holiday. They suddenly stood at my doorstep. It's strange behaviour from the club and odd.
He's been disrespected, hasn't he? Ten Hag.
I think so.
He's been disrespected.
Which takes us a little bit back to the FA Cup final, where we knew in the game that Manchester United interviewed not just one manager, by the way.
But how bad is that?
It's poor.
We talked about Jim Ratcliffe coming into the club and he's going to change things. Well, he hires the people, proper football people, and then you're hearing stories like this. It's ridiculous, isn't it? When you think about it, I mean,
it's extraordinary. Actually,
like
I've never known anything like this.
How can he interview a manager but tell him that they've spoke to another manager? And then Ten Hag will say, okay, I'll stay. If I was a manager, I'd be like, okay, no problem, not for me.
I think he also said that, we have to discuss a new contract. So, I mean, who knows what will happen there. But
I said in the pod that, and I think you and Alan said he was going to go, or maybe Alan said he was going to go.
He thought he would go.
I just thought the fact that it was up in limbo, and if you look at the managers available right now, Tuchel would have been a good fit. Yeah. He's a really good manager. Obviously, won the Champions League at Chelsea.
Pochettino's available.
He would have been available. He would have been great. But I would like to see Ten Hag at Man United for a full season without injuries, and then
without injuries and a little bit of back in.
Exactly.
I mean, he's won in his defence, and he deserves to be defended. He's won 2 titles:
League Cup,
and then the FA Cup this season. Mm-hmm. We asked him that awkward question, but. That, is your job safe?
He wasn't happy though, was he?
No. People were saying the reason we're critical of you is that it wasn't the moment to ask that question. But Erik Ten Hag came to us wanting to talk about that. There's no question. He came, he was angry at the way people had spoken about him, the way pundits had spoken about him generally. So he created that.
Correct.
So, I mean... And that's why Alan went, well, hang on a minute. And he's protecting his own side of things, defending himself, as I think he was perfectly entitled to do. And I had to ask him the question because we all knew that Manchester United spoke to other people.
I just don't think that it's not fair. I know it's football.
It's not fair. I felt for him. And at the end I said, I hope you're there next season. Because I genuinely felt for him under those circumstances, having won a trophy. I mean, it happened to them before, didn't it? With Van Gaal,
yeah,
when they won the FA Cup as well. So,
I just hope for his sake, for Man United's sake. Obviously, I'm talking from the blue side of things, but you want to see Man United competing at least, and a little bit of stability because they've been all over the place.
Well, maybe this will give them stability if they work this slight mess out. Yeah, we shall see. Okay, Micah, well, we'll see what happens at Manchester United. But as far as England are concerned, they're off to a winning start. And we'll finish this glass of wine now, shall we?
Come on, England!
Yeah, come on, England. And safe travels, Alan Shearer.
Yes, correct.
Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.